dream can be a distraction just as easy as it can be a goal.
Good night.
Ooh. And when I heard that, I thought that was so profound, because so many times we forget that it's okay to pivot. We forget that just because I didn't receive what you thought was best for you in your lifetime, you think you're a failure. You think you're not doing good enough. You think that your friends who are on your same age level, or your best friend or your partner, is doing so much better for you, and you start to get down. But if you pivot your mindset, instead of quitting out on your goals, you might realize that where you were planted, you will bloom way higher, faster, more greener than you could ever imagine. Only if you sit in that moment and you start listening and you start enjoying what's around you in that environment.
Welcome back.
Hey, what Chance the Rapper said? Oh, we back. Oh, we back.
Well, I was gonna go with that Mace. Welcome back.
Hey.
Bro, when I'm on the mic with y'all, I feel like I have no rhythm. Y'all just get to singing and humming and jigging, bro. I'm like, so
man, you got your own rhythm. Tap into the Kamau rhythm and give them a piece.
That West.
Everybody got their rhythm.
Right,
that
West.
Y'all don't
for
see
real.
It with the fitted too.
Yeah, right. That Mexico, all the way west.
Ooh. Add a little bit of that in there too. Give us some. Come on. Just give us a little piece.
Bro, you know, I've actually been like practicing.
I was about to say, you better have did.
I knew it was gonna come at some point, but it's not gonna be today. We gonna get there, but it's not gonna be today. I would say, valid. Learning Spanish, it takes a lot of patience with yourself, because I feel like a fucking child, and being a grown ass person and feeling intelligent in one language and feeling like you can carry yourself, handle business in one language, and then going back to being a child, it's a hard thing to do from a confidence standpoint. You know what I'm saying? Just like feeling like I can open my mouth and what's going to come out is exactly what I need to come out.
Yeah.
That shit, like, it's a thing. Like, I have a whole nother respect for immigrants and people who, you know, just.
It's humbling. Yeah.
This shit is humbling as fuck.
Yeah.
I heard something before, kind of to what you're speaking to, Kamau. And what it said was, never laugh at someone with broken English because they know another language. So it's like, when you think about it from that aspect, that might like put a little bit more like confidence and pep in your step, because even if at this point, your Spanish would be a little bit broken, but all that means is you're bilingual, or you know more languages. So it's like, if you look at it that way, it's like, hey, even if it's broken, that means I'm learning this because I know something else. That means I'm confident in something else.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying?
They broken English. They're at 1 3/4, and we at 1. Sometimes we at 90%. Like, we ain't even got this one mastered.
I feel like us as a country and a culture, like, we just have so much. I don't know what the right word is, but the whole world revolves around America in our eyes. And so, you know, for us to not learn another language is not really a big deal. Like, it's really easy for us to judge somebody who has broken English and just be like, fuck is wrong with you, you know? Yeah. Whereas for them, I feel like not only are they expected to know English already, like, English is almost like everybody's expected to know it too, you know? But when we try to speak their language, I feel like a lot of times, at least here in Mexico, in Spanish, they're not really offended that Americans don't know how to speak Spanish. They appreciate it when we do, but they just assume that all Americans don't give a fuck about learning any other language, and we're going to force everything in English.
Yeah, no, it's advantageous too, because that's how I build relationships. Because you being willing to struggle and be humble, people love that. Where you don't have you feel some type of way, you're like, okay, I'm gonna try, and you're trying, and people can relate to that feeling, right? Especially if they don't speak English at all, they're like, nah, I feel you. Okay, I appreciate you trying to step into my culture. And that's a big thing for me. I'm relearning Yoruba, and I feel you the same thing on the humility, because this was my first language, and I've heard it spoken in the house my entire life. And then when I start to get saying words, my grandma be flaming me up. She be like, say it again, and then just like breaking down what I'm saying. But I'm like, okay, it's part of the process. It's part of the process.
Yeah.
And speaking of process, to bring us back to the gratitude in the videos, the marketing, the season 2 starting, coming, one dude was like, bro, I'm so proud of y'all. I remember when y'all had that first live, you know, what is ego? Talking before the podcast even started. And he's like, just y'all's consistency is inspiring. And I was like, bro, we didn't even have to be here, right? This could have not happened in so many different ways. So many things have stopped and started since. And can I say, we still here?
We still here.
We still here.
And I feel like we still here, and and it's so crazy that y'all two were just speaking on the trying piece for learning another language, because I feel like that's how I look at us too. Like, we're still here. We know we want to do this, but like, we actually try. You know, like, we try to understand each other's point of views. We try to understand each other's lanes, you know, on the management side of it. We try to understand each other's point of views. And I think that's a beautiful thing. You know what I'm saying? Right now, in front of everybody, I just want to give y'all flowers, and also just like all three of us as a unit. Because I really feel like we try. We all have our different paths. We all have our different trials. We all have our different happiness. We all have different things that we probably would, you know, want to be doing in a moment, you know, maybe not right now, but other times we're dealing with the podcast. But like Tunji said, we still here. And I'm going to say that, like, we're still trying. And I feel like as long as we're going to keep trying, people on the outside are going to see that we're trying and excelling at trying. Because I think that's the thing too. Like, you can literally excel at trying, and it just puts you over the hump. And what we were talking about earlier, before this started, of just like brick by brick. Like, you really keep trying brick by brick. And really other people start to see, you know, those trials, but those trials and you trying turns into something beautiful.
Talk.
Hey, it's been some work put in behind the scenes. It's definitely been some work. I'm sure as the listener, you probably see, you know, we coming harder on social media. Shout out to Zuri, she's been cooking. Really, it's definitely been some work. We are excited. We are ready to just let the blessings pour. Like, this has been intentional from the start of the off season. People have been in the gym.
Because that right there. So just Draymond, right? He's training with these other NBA players, and he's talking about being hungry, and they're running sprints at the end. And he's like, y'all don't get it. Y'all not pushing yourself, right? You're not giving everything. There are like 2-3 players on every team that can do whatever they want, and everybody else got to play a role. You could be one of the best players in the world, and you still got a role to play. So if you're supposed to get the rebounds, get the rebounds. Right? And it's that humility and giving the best in your role. So this offseason, us giving each other roles, and it's like, hey, like Tunji, get the rebounds. Most blessed, get the rebounds. And I'm like, it's time to get these rebounds.
Yeah.
Right? And it's like focus and fully dialing in to what you're supposed to do. And that's how championship teams are made. So,
hey, we about to start cooking already.
I love that you brought up that video, because when I saw that video, it kind of jacked me up in a corner. It kind of got me right, because I feel like everybody has their ego. Everybody has their own, like you were talking about earlier, Tunji, beautiful selfishness. When you get a part of a team, of course, you have the idea of where you want to go as an individual. But being able to be on a team, whether it's 3, whether it's 10, whether it's 14, to me, the 3 of us, we're the best speakers in the world, but that's to me. You know what I'm saying? Like, that's how I feel. Yeah. But at the same time, you all just don't know. When I say you to the listeners, Kamau has his part off the camera, and when we're not behind the mic, Tunji has his part. Zuri I have my part. And I love how you put that together, Tunji, because when we hold our different parts, and especially I can speak to the alignment piece too, when you are aligned with other people, the part that you're supposed to play is the part that you're supposed to play. And when you play that part, it's for a reason. You love what you do for a reason. Like, come on, you love the PM side for a reason. I love the creative side for a reason. Tunji, you love to speak to people and make people feel like they are the greatest person in the world for a reason. You know what I'm saying? And all of that together stirred in the pot. You got magic. My favorite thing to say, you got magic. You have something that that nobody else, like nobody can come into a unit like that when everybody plays their part. But alignment is a part of the parts that are supposed to be played.
Remind me, again, sports analogies coming for days. Mike Tyson, he's like, discipline is doing what you hate to do, but doing it like you love it. And I was like, when you can switch that gear and switch that like you love it, and you actually get to love it, oh, it's different, right? Like you said, you doing the marketing, the creative piece that you love. Kamau, like real mogul businessman, like setting it up. All right, you do this, like get that audio together, all the nuances. Me, the relationship piece. And the thing is, what's so powerful is when we in this off season, I didn't necessarily feel connected to doing anything. I just want to talk, right? But for y'all to say like, no, okay, we all need our roles. And for y'all to see something in me that I didn't see in myself. And on the other side of it, I'm like, that makes sense. Okay, let me play my role and play it well. And then you start creating a vision for how you can really execute on this on a high level. And that's when it gets to a championship team. When it went from, I need to get these rebounds to I'm obsessed with it. I'm obsessed with it. How do I get these rebounds like nobody ever has before? Like on some Dennis Rodman, I'm throwing the ball off the rim and finding all the angles that can come off. Okay, how do we make guests? When you get a guest on this podcast, how does it feel different than any other podcast? How do they step in with us and it feels like home? Like, I feel like they're going to be here every single week, right? No matter who touches down here. So it's just, hey, I love it here. I love it here.
And to a piece you said, Tunji, that we saw something in you that you didn't even see. That's out of genuality, and that's out of transparency, and that's out of love. Like, that's how I see it. And being able to accept that and like trust too, and be able to trust, like, okay, well, if they see that, well, if they see it, then I know it's coming from a genuine place. So let me tap in. And when you start to listen to people who have a genuine love and want for you, you really start to look inward. Like, I didn't see that, but I see why now, because it comes from a genuine place. And now you can move forward and maybe tap into something you never thought that you even wanted to. And I feel like, too, going back to that child analogy we were talking about earlier, it's almost like being a child again. It's almost like being an infant. You have people around you who love you. Yeah. And you know you have these feelings inside of maybe what you want to do, but until someone, you know, from their experience and from their genuine love to see you be great, you're like, okay, I never thought about that. Let me give it a try. And they saw it for a reason, right? When you're in alignment and when you're around people who love you, they lead you with genuine intentions. And like you said, Kamau, again, all this is coming together. It's all about the intentions. You have to do it intentional, and you have to be around people who have great intentions for you.
Man, if I could jump in, I was just about to say that I think a part of the challenge in working with a team, or just working with anybody who's not yourself, is, I mean, you got to keep it real on both sides of the ball. Like, as you know, us trying to help Tunji see something that he didn't see in himself, like, the responsibility is on you, you know, to guide somebody with integrity. Like, you don't want to be in a position where you're trying to puppet master somebody, or you're trying to get them to do something, you know, that's for your benefit or just to move your agenda. But you really got to keep it solid in the sense that, like, I want to put you in a position that you can win. You know, we see something in you that you can bring something. And then from the receiving perspective, it's, I'm going to step into this with trust, not because I trust the thing, but I trust the people who are setting me up for this. Not because I see and I understand exactly what this thing is, but I trust the thing and I'm bought into the end vision. And it's tough because a lot of times, you know, you got these entrepreneurial, motivated, passionate people who are in your network, who are in my network, who are really good at doing what they do by themselves, you know, who are already successful, you know, like I'm not just working with anybody who's not successful. So when people kind of get a little success on their own, you know, it can be hard to defer. It can be hard to accept a role that you didn't create for yourself, you know. And you know, being on the team, I think it's a beautiful thing in the sense that you can do so much more with others than you can do by yourself, but it's a real test of character. You know, it's a real test of, are you really about what you say you're about? Because you're going to have to accept a role or do a thing, or, you know, make a pivot that you weren't planning on, that you're being asked to do, not that you're volunteering to do. So it's a thing. And I would, you know, offer to anybody who's trying to build anything substantial, like, you need other people, but go into it with integrity. You know, go into it really trying to create win-win situations, and you know, and just build the trust.
That's real. One of the questions I was asking, because I was redoing, like, you know, the mission statement and everything that we do, vision boards and all that at the beginning of the year. I was looking at fundamental questions that define my life and my organization here. And the question was, who do we become if I continue to grow? If I continue to grow. And what I mean in the sense of, like, you're really exceptional at one thing, but now you're in this team, and what they need is this. They have that over here. They have this over here. What they need is this. And you have to go back to being that baby. You have to go back to learning Spanish. When English, you nasty with it. You got to go back to day one. Are you willing to do what it takes to grow? For everything to really click, to to create alignment. And it's a humility, boy. It's wild. Because I was even thinking about, and what's so crazy, I don't know why I would think about this. Number one, y'all be juiced up because y'all are like, what, 7 years younger than me? Right? So I'm in my 30s. I'm 32, turning 33 this year.
We like
4 years.
Yeah, we like 4 or 5.
Oh, for real? For real? I thought y'all babies. Yeah. Okay. Still on my grown man though. But anyway, that usually is a hindrance for people, right? Mm-hmm. I'm older, so I should know more. I'm older, so you should automatically respect and lay down. Like, my voice comes before yours. But age doesn't signify what somebody can see in you. Age doesn't determine perspective always. So when somebody says, hey, this is what we need, and this is what you can do. If you're willing to accept that every time and go back to being a baby.
And before we transition, I have one thing to say to your point, Tunji, to the age factor. If you only go by the factor of if you should listen or be in alignment with someone because of their age, you will miss out on so many blessings. Have you ever been around a kid who's more than 10 years, maybe even 15 years younger than you, and they say something and you're like, how did you know I needed that right now? How did you even come up with that? Because kids are so pure. Kids don't have that world mentality yet. Yeah. So if you keep letting age get in the way, there was a time when I was younger, and my mom still like tells me this to this day. Like, I've experienced this before I even knew what this was when I'm speaking now. When I was a kid and I said something, it had the whole room shook. Right? I don't remember it. Yeah. But I've had now reversed that experience to me. I've been around a kid before, and I mean, it was just something I was battling at the time. And this kid said something, and I looked at the kid. I wanted to tap that kid like, who are you? Like, thank you. You know, even though they wouldn't have understood that. But I just thought what you said was so profound, Tunji, and I wanted to add that because we really have to get out that world-like mind of, I only look up to individuals who are older than me or who are in a career that I want to be. But just like Issa Rae says, for networking, network with people horizontally and not vertically. It's the same thing. Listen to people horizontally or who are age below you. All of it is the same. You can really miss out if you look at it another way.
go ahead, Kamau. You about to you about.
Yeah, I'll go. I mean, look, I think in the spirit of growth, in the spirit of pushing forward, during the off season, we put in a lot of work. And I think, this is the moment where we experiment in, we want to give something forward to the culture and to our listeners. And yeah, without further ado, I'm gonna pass it to Zuri.
So our first segment, is Quitter to Pivot. And before I get into this segment, I just want to explain more of the purpose and the goal for this segment. So Quitter to Pivot, the goal of Quitter to Pivot is to invite and speak on culture-like activities, culture-like segments that are going on in our culture, of just and seeing the purpose behind whatever that situation is. There are always a lot of scenarios and situations that go on in the culture, but I feel like some of these scenarios could be broken down a little bit for our listeners to see the pivoting within their stories, to see the purpose behind maybe what they're doing. So without further ado, we want to hop right into Quitter to Pivot. Y'all with it?
Get it.
Run it.
Get it. All right. So there's this new Black-led show called Abbott Elementary. I know it's streaming on Hulu, ABC, Black-led, Black woman, creator and co-writer. And there has been a lot of profound episodes and a lot of profound lessons. And I think today I want to share one with you all. Just get your perspective, Tunji and Kamau and our listeners, just on the pivot and the purpose behind a quote and a scene that I heard in this show that I want to talk about today. So one of the characters, Greg, he's about 28 years old. He's starting in his career as a teacher. His goal and his dream was to be principal of this same school that he is now a teacher in. So it's this janitor as well, one of my favorite characters, honestly. And he said the most profound quote as advice to Gregory, who was feeling down, was feeling blue, was feeling depressed, that he did not get offered the principal job. He was thinking that, he was a failure, etc. The quote was, "A dream can be a distraction just as easy as it can be a goal." And if you let that
say it one more time. Say it one more time.
The quote from the show was, "A dream can be a distraction just as easy as it can be a goal."
Good night.
Ooh. And when I heard that, I thought that was so profound, because so many times we forget that it's okay to pivot. We forget that just because I didn't receive what you thought was best for you in your lifetime, you think you're a failure. You think you're not doing good enough. You think that your friends who are on your same age level, or your best friend or your partner, is doing so much better for you, and you start to get down. But if you pivot your mindset, instead of quitting out on your goals, you might realize that where you were planted, you will bloom way higher, faster, more greener than you could ever imagine. Only if you sit in that moment and you start listening and you start enjoying what's around you in that environment. And going back to the show, you could see the light on Greg's face, the character Greg's face, when he heard that quote. You could tell he needed it. You could tell that he needed to be fed. And I thought that was such a profound episode for us to talk about today, especially with our podcast being named Pivot and Proceed.
So when we talk about like pivot or quit it, and I think about that situation, boy, I have lived that. Not no crazy Ava principal coming at me like that, but when I came from LA to Atlanta, in my mind, the dream, the next step, cooked in the classroom for about 4 or 5 years, assistant principalship. Had the background, had the skill set, had the references, like had the credential that I could use. And I'm having all these opportunities, these doors keep closing. And I mean, I go to meet somebody like this, a cool dude, like, oh, I got you a pathway, looking at, we having conversation, I'm gonna give you a call. This is DeKalb County. This Atlanta, all these places where it's like, I got you. No response. Week later. No response 2 weeks later. Hey, just following up, what's up? And school starts. And I still don't have an opportunity. I'm holding on to the dream like, nah, this is the next step. Right. This is the next step. And I'm looking for every role I can in administration. Not only do I end up back in the classroom, I end up in Johns Creek. So I'm not even teaching primarily Black kids anymore. And because this is the one door that opened. When I'm not necessarily sauced up and I'm in a master teacher, but I know what I can do, especially for little Black kids that look like me. And I end up in this place where it's an affluent area, super diverse. And it was exactly what I needed. It was exactly what I needed. I left that year with a totally different perspective. And I did go back the year later to Atlanta and started teaching at KIPP school, and it was predominantly Black where I felt at home, but I needed to not be at home for that year. I needed to be outside of my comfort zone. They needed me as a teacher and I needed them. Now that is always part of my story because I pivoted, because I let go of this has to be the next step. Boy, when I tell you, the doors had to be closed for me. Because, when you have that tenacious mindset, like, no, I'm getting an administrative job. Not only do I have the skill set, this is what's next. Like I said, that prayer, God closed the doors that I'm not willing to close. Because nothing else was open and it was September, I had to take the job. And it ended up being exactly where I was supposed to be. So in that situation, for me, I say that's a pivot. Just because that's what I did. Because I didn't have an option to quit.
Man, that's such a powerful, it was such a powerful quote. And I mean, it really has me so fucked up because the thought that a dream could be a distraction is really disheartening. I think to be a dreamer in itself takes courage. It takes you almost being vulnerable with life and not being pessimistic and being like, I can actually do something on this world. I can actually, make my way. I can make my stamp. It's super easy to be pessimistic. It's super easy to just, listen to all the naysayers and doubters and not really have a lot of value in yourself. So to actually bet on a dream, to chase and to feel called to a dream, like that in itself is a very delicate feeling. So to wrestle with the reality that like what I'm chasing is actually distracted me from what I'm really supposed to be chasing. That's just so mind-boggling. I feel like I can't relate to being a teacher. I can't even relate to having a super clean career path where like I'm supposed to go this direction and I'm supposed to matriculate into assistant principal and super. Like I've never been on a career track like that. I think I have had a dream though. I had a dream to start a business in the cannabis industry. And I went balls to the wall. I dropped out of college. I was all in. You can ask anybody who knows me, like that was me. I mean, I had like the beginnings of it because I was a stoner at a pretty young age. But I just felt like I need to be a weed entrepreneur. Like I was just so convinced that this was the next, this was where I needed to be, that this was my dream. And sometimes I feel like there's that time in life where you convince yourself of this is what your dream is. And it's interesting because I felt like I got to a place where after a little experience doing other things, and after some failed experience doing that, after the failed experience, I accepted that, like, you know what, this failure is taking one step back to take 2 steps forward. The 2 steps forward that I took weren't back in the cannabis industry, though. They were just in business, and they were trying to, build myself back up so I can make a re-entry. And I think, over the last year or so, I've really just sat with like, is this an industry that I actually want to get in? Is this the real dream? Am I called to do this? And I felt like over and over, I will put so much pressure on myself to make a transition and to get in this industry and to burn the bridges. And I was just like, for what? Like, there's not a lot of flow. And then just, I guess, as I matured, the value of weed changed in my life. Like, I still rock with weed, but would I make it my life's work? Probably not at this point. And so it was a humbling, disheartening, and confusing thing to wrestle with, that like weed is not, or cannabis entrepreneurship is not my dream anymore. So, I in that moment, whether you quit it or pivot, I think, I don't want to say you go one direction or not, but I do think that you can acknowledge that dreams do change. And that, as my mom would always say, quote a Mama Dukes, when there's a fork in the road and you only have two paths, take the third.
Sheesh.
Ooh.
Mama Olatunji.
I like that.
No, I like that.
I like
so
that for
that was
real.
So I appreciate both of you all inserts, because that quote definitely, I felt, spoke to us as a unit and spoke to us as this podcast and as our values and as our mission. And to end off this segment, just to speak on really Greg's character, and the segment named Quit or to Pivot, he definitely chose not to quit on that job and quit on his adventure and his way of finding out what was really meant for him. He decided to pivot in the environment and to bloom where he is planted. And I think just the culture of that show really speaks to, what we're building here on this podcast.
Boy, something that dream is a distraction is heavy. My mind goes to, I know the segment just finished, but just my mind goes to, a brother told me sometime in LA, I think we're doing voter registration. He said, my dream is to not go back to jail. Right. And your life will break you to the point where we're dreaming big. I want to create this. I want to do this. But then I looked at a dream being a distraction, because your mind doesn't know negatives. It doesn't know I don't want. It just hears jail. So your mind, you're saying I don't want to do this, but it doesn't know negatives. So you start seeing all the ways you could go back to jail to avoid it, but you're seeing all the ways. And that dream is the distraction from you visioning, I want to be a chef, or I want to do this. I want to be an artist. I want to start a boys program. I want to, anything that you could really be envisioning. But the dream of not going to jail becomes a distraction.
Yeah, you're playing not to lose.
Right? Life breaks down how you dream now. So that really hit me, because I didn't. Nah, that's. I'm quiet. I'm quiet. Ooh.
And last thing I'm gonna say in this segment, is to your point, Tunji, about how our mind breaks down things that we say. What that took me to was, everything lies in the power of the tongue. Whatever you say to yourself, whatever you say out loud, even whatever you think, that is still the power of the tongue. And you have to make sure that whatever is trying to distract you, and you really have to make sure that this dream is really the path that you're supposed to be taking, even if it isn't what you thought it would be, or even if it isn't what you thought where you would be. You really have to decide that, like, whatever I say is word, is bond, and you have to go after that, but also pivot your mindset in whatever environment you end up, and be content with, this is where I'm supposed to be, at least right now. And whatever is happening for me in this moment, and not to me. And with that, we can wrap up this segment.
Hey.
Yeah. I like that.
One down.
I like that.
Transitioning into another idea that we came up with, called How Should I Proceed? We talk a lot about on this podcast. I feel like we say the word pivot at least 16 times per episode. Obviously, like that's a big part of it, right? It's a big part of anybody's journey, is those pivots. But I think a lot of times, where it gets confusing is like, you need to pivot, but it's how do I actually proceed? And so this segment is really to create a two-way street with you, our audience, and to bring you in as family, as a part of these conversations, to just share some of our experiences. I think we all agree vehemently that we do not want to be placed on a pedestal. We do not want to be the sage, or the messiah that has to answer to the people of all the right and wrongs you need to do. But I think all of us have lived some rich lives, and are able to see themes and just kind of dig in our own bag of maybe a time we had been like that, or maybe a time we had been down, and how life gets. It just gets so so cloudy sometimes that it's like you really don't know, so foggy out, the air is so thick that you can't see a way forward. Sometimes it helps having a different perspective. So I got a submission here, and I got a couple different submissions, but the one I chose is one that really kind of rings true to me. So I'm gonna read the situation here, and the challenge to my two wonderful co-hosts, including myself, is to follow up this segment with a maxim, a parable, something that digs into their genius bag, along with a 60-second timed answer of how they would address this. So, from a writer, I had an agreement with a close family member of mine to move in with them in another state. Things here in my home state just weren't working out, and I needed a fresh start. They ended up kicking me out on some bullshit, and now I have to find out what I'm going to do. How should I proceed?
I'll jump in. Langston Hughes. I'll drop that quote because he said there are ways of getting almost anywhere you want to go if you really want to go. I think about in different situations where I was in LA, and the first year I was teaching in Long Beach, and I wanted to move closer to my school. It's not getting kicked out. This is just me deciding, okay, where do I really want to be? You don't necessarily need to be there for a fresh start. So I asked myself, do I need to go back home? Do I want to stay here? And I think that's the first question I always think of in situations like that, where I had a plan and it was family, so it hurts different. Me, I'm just living with a roommate, and it was hard to leave him, because we had built a bond in a time where there was loneliness, it was sadness, it was overwork. So I would say my first question is, do I really want to go there? Was it really about the state? And then where can I get a fresh start where I have a home?
Sheesh. Man, so if I can jump in right here, Kamau, when you said that scenario, first thing that came to mind were 3 words: meant to be. A lot of times we try to force scenarios. A lot of times we make up this entire plan for ourselves. And we're saying, for me to get to the next level, I need to move here. I need to move in with family. Maybe one of his or she reasons was to save money, maybe to elevate their career, etc. But if it didn't work out in whatever way it worked out, unfortunately, this person got kicked out and it probably hurt. But it was meant to be, because you weren't meant to be in that environment. And who knows why you weren't meant to be in that environment. We don't want to question too hard of the why, of the whys, and how come we weren't a part of that environment, how come we weren't invited into someone's space. You never know if he would have got invited to that space, who he would have been after he left that space. That could have been a protection mechanism for something that he couldn't foresee from moving in there. He just saw maybe the easy route out. He saw an easier route out at that time to maybe, just move in with them. But you never know what's behind other people's closed doors. And sometimes that energy just isn't for you. Sometimes that environment just isn't for you. You don't need that in your life. So that's what I have to say. You never know what's behind someone else's closed doors. You never know what other people are going through. You never know if that energy is for you. So go back on your path, revamp. My advice would be just like write something down of where you want to be, something that I've done so many times in my life, just writing it down and obsessing over where I want to be. And if where I thought I wanted to be was that, scrap that. Next page. Let's see what else I can obsess over. Let's see where else I want Zuri to be. How I want to feel. That's another thing. How do you want to feel in those environments? You might think that house was a great landing place for you, but maybe it wasn't going to be speaking to you as a person. So you just have to go with that. Whatever makes you feel, ready to move on and confident to go to your next place in life.
To take it back to the West Coast, West, the marathon continues. I have been in that situation, and it sucks, especially when it's family, because it's family, right? Like I think we all have certain expectations about what family is supposed to do for us. It almost always falls short. Some people are just born into some beautiful, awesome ass families, and I'm happy for you. I'm jealous of you, and I strive to build something as great as what you got. But a lot of us, I think, aren't able to take that for granted, and we have to readjust our expectations on what family is supposed to do for us, or how we can rely on them. And it's not always really clear until shit hits the fan. And then you just got to pack your shit, and you just got to do what you got to do. And so the marathon continues. It's not it's not your last stop. It's clearly not your first stop, but it was a necessary stop. You learned a lesson, and you shouldn't stay where you're not welcome.
That's it right there.
Side note, I don't think any of us timed each other, so I don't know what the time point is.
I did. Me and Zuri went over, but Tunji, impressive as always. 7 seconds to spare.
I'm the longest winded one. I'll be getting lost in my own. But yeah, we're gonna work on it. We're gonna work on it. Yeah.
I'll hold the timer up if that helps.
Yeah, I could tell Zuri got lost in the story. I got lost in it too. I was like, she said, all right. Because I feel like at first you hit the time, you were like, and that's it. But also, write it down. I was like, talk.
I just be feeling it, man. That's 60 seconds, boy. That's gonna be a challenge, but I'm ready.
Yeah, we need that. I like that. And going into our third segment, this one's mine. We all came together to come up with different ones. The name of this segment is what is your favorite failure? And it speaks for itself. Why we came up with this one is when you talk about your favorite failure, first you're forced to look at it being a failure. What L did you catch? And now you look back on it, you reflect on it, and it actually was a win for you. It actually led you where you were supposed to go. You look back on it now and you smile because it made you who you were. So when I think about this, I think about one of my first ones where it was a major L. Coming out of high school, I won't say I was arrogant, but I was confident. I knew that I was going to University of Georgia. You couldn't tell me different. Not because I was so great, but 3 of my sisters went already, and they're not better than me. Like, I'm a product of them. Right? Come on now. They went, I'm them, I've seen them. And it's not like I was the coolest guy. I was super friendly. And I was in some AP classes, some college prep classes. I played team sports, goofy. So I was like, and then I was prom king. So I was like, okay, I got a good balance. I'm him. I'm getting into this school. When I tell you I did first application, deferred, rejected. I did second application, deferred, rejected again. They called me. I went to homeroom and I applied to Georgia State on the slick when everybody was looking and doing that application because They didn't give me any response. It's the spring. Everybody knows what school they're going to already. I'm real quiet. And I get a call from University of Georgia. And they're like, oh, we would like to welcome you for the spring semester, but not the fall. So you're going to have to figure out what you're doing from August to December. And you can come in January. And she's sounding all jolly and chipper. I'm like, nah, in my head, I'm salty. What you mean January? Like, why'd y'all make me wait this long? Why? I feel in some type of way. And she said, oh, don't get it twisted. You're a good student, but there are a lot of great students. We have to make space for them and make room for them first. When I tell you that put a chip on my shoulder, that in the fall, I went to Georgia State and I got busy. And I actually fell in love with Georgia State. And I was thinking to myself, like, am I going to stay at Georgia State? And I was like, nah. Just because of that chip on my shoulder, I had to go to that school and prove that I was who I thought I was. That my sisters that came before me, like, no, this is where I wanted to go. So that failure, that L of, she was right too. Because it wasn't like I was the best student. I was a finesser. I did what had to be done.
You weren't great. You're good.
I was good. And that's why I hit the most. She was right. She was right. When I got there and I saw like the valedictorians for the past 3 years at my school and all these other people, I'm like, she was right. And that's when the chip grew bigger. Because she wasn't just talking like, nah, I've read you, sir. You're not your sisters either. Calm down. And I was like, ugh. But that's my favorite failure. Because it forced me to work harder. It forced me to dig in. It forced me to not take it for granted. And a lot of people that outperformed me in high school, academically, socially, everything, I ended up outperforming them because I put them on a level of they're great, I'm just good. And I have something to prove. That's my favorite failure. That humility, that embarrassment, like that's one of my favorite failures. I'm grateful for that L.
Sheesh.
So now do y'all got any favorite failures? And it don't got to be that deep, right? It can be small.
Bet. I'll hop into one of mine. For the record, I have hundreds of favorite failures. So this segment about to be a candy store. But the one that I'm going to talk about now is my most recent favorite failure. Respect. And one of my most recent favorite failures is the feeling of the feeling of starting anew. But when you start anew, don't get it twisted that sometimes you might feel lost within that newness. You might feel a tad bit of imposter syndrome in that newness. And I see that as a failure or a type of failure. And for me right now, my favorite failure, because once you change your mindset of feeling lost in something or something that you just started new, you start to realize that it's a blessing to be feeling lost in this, because this is what I worked so hard for. This is what I prayed for, right? This is what you asked for. This is what you obsessed over. You know you belong here. But right now in this moment, everything is new around you. You feel out of place. You feel uncomfortable. You feel a little lost. People are talking new verbiage around you, and you're like, okay, I feel lost. Now you start to talk to yourself. And that's where that one way to get out of this rut is to go piece by piece, right? Create relationships around you, right? Create this newness inside you within this new environment to help you get through the day to day and for you to show up and do your best. So my favorite failure right now is just kind of feeling lost sometimes within this newness, this new environment I'm in. But this segment right here is already shifting my mindset and putting that word favorite in front of that lostness, putting that word favorite in front of the failure and seeing the beauty within that lostness. Because I know if I'm lost now, I won't stay here. And if I remember correctly, the last time I felt lost, I became such a whole new, revived and restructured person where then nobody could touch me. So if you're lost first within a new environment, just know that you're uncomfortable for a reason. You're uncomfortable to elevate. When you're comfortable, you don't have to elevate anymore. You good.
Yeah, facts.
I don't elevate when I'm asleep
because
because I know how it feels. I don't elevate when I'm asleep. I'm used to that. It's a habit by now. But when I'm uncomfortable, I start to read myself and I start to elevate in ways that I didn't even know was possible.
Y'all not hearing it though. Nah. I don't elevate when I'm asleep. Ugh. Y'all gonna have to wake up. Are you asleep? My boy, don't get Pastor Zuri preaching in here. Don't do it.
No cap.
Don't do
cap.
Oh man.
Sheesh. That's powerful. Yeah, this is a tough one. My favorite failure was, I don't really feel like it was a failure because I was trying to like fail or succeed. I think here's the backstory is I dropped out of college, as I just mentioned. I was really lost for a long time. Obviously, as I said, cannabis thing didn't work out. And one thing, I'm kind of notorious for knocking college. But one thing, what I will say about college that I respect and appreciate is the structure that it provides people who need structure. And I think the majority of people who are 18, 19, 20 years old need some structure in their life to grow. I feel like a lot of them aren't mature enough to build that structure for themselves. Like, we just want to have fun. Like, you've just been through your whole life of school and parenting, and you're technically an adult now. So it's hard to kind of create that structure. And that was the space I found myself in. Fast forward, I found this career job accelerator and I went for it. I applied, didn't get in the first time, got in the second time, and it was super intense. And I found myself almost in it felt like an Ivy League of accelerators or boot camps. And there was a lot of smart people from a lot of different backgrounds, homeschool, parents were millionaire entrepreneurs, just all kind of people. And I felt like a bit I really stood out, but because I'm competitive, I was like, I'm here, I'm showing up, whether I'm struggling through whatever, I'm gonna show up. I'm different than y'all. I'm sleeping on my mom's couch and I'm working at Trader Joe's. Like, y'all are fucking chilling and taking a gap year and shit. Like, we different, So I was gonna do what I needed to do. But when it came time to placement at the end and it was time to get a job, I was big on staying in Atlanta. And the whole program was about getting you set up at a tech company, getting you set up at a startup. And it's just a different mindset when I feel like you're preparing to work at a startup. Like, you're excited. You're like, oh, this is going to be cutting edge. I might get placed at Microsoft or some cool shit. And what came along for me was a 75-year-old economics nonprofit think tank. And I was like, boy, what the hell? Like, I mean, I'm going to be appreciative of an opportunity, but that's all y'all got. Y'all don't got nothing else in the catalog. Like, there's no tech companies in Atlanta. Like, come on. Like, where's the startups? Like, I know there's something, but that's what I had. And I think when we started the program, 6 months into kind of working at your job, you're still locked in with the program and you're kind of talking to other people and sharing experiences, and it's kind of helping to support you. And so you're not just going through this alone, but you have some support and a structure on how to do well at your job. And I just remember, man, people coming back to these calls and talking about the P&Ls of company, and we just got our seed A investment, and I'm working with the founder and I'm working really closely with the chief marketing officer. And I was just like, yeah, we donate books to schools. You know, it was so boring to me, and I just, and it was frustrating. You know, I just felt like I kind of was cheated out of the program, or I didn't get a fair shot. I felt like, you know, I'm playing in the minor leagues and everybody else got to go play in the big leagues. And it was frustrating. And I think it's my favorite failure because what I've been able to do with that one opportunity, which I'm still at, and nobody else who I started with in my little cohort is at their company. Everybody else either got fired, let go, laid off, company crash. You know how startups are. They're volatile. I'm the only one. And not only do I still have a job, but like I've been able to leverage this job to help people, to help myself. And it's just been such a blessing in disguise that I thought it was this ugly fucking ducking at first. You know, I was just not happy with the coal that Santa gave me. I was like, bro, like I was a good kid. Yeah. But it was actually a diamond and I couldn't see it. And it took 5 years to see it. But damn, I'm glad I stuck with it.
Oh, y'all not hearing him. Don't get me hyped. He said I didn't realize it was cold, but it was a diamond. Talk. I just want to add the point. Let me calm down. Kamau, in his opportunity, has blessed me as well. And why I love these segments and just what we did right now is I can know you, but this gives me an opportunity to see you differently, right? Mm-hmm. And to hear you and really like we talk about being a body of work. Like you as people, I feel like I see more of your body of work as a human being. And that's so powerful. And the listeners, as they listen, and I just imagine being on the receiving end of this to see the growth, right? To get to see more of us now. So it's just dope. Like this is a beautiful thing to be a part of. That's a beautiful thing to be a part of. And that's favorite failures, ladies and gentlemen. That's favorite failures. You better talk to us nice. Talk to us nice. As we say, talk to us like you were raised with love.
I think the one thing out of all of these three, though, that I just can't shake is this dream being a distraction. I'm sure there's a bunch of things that y'all want to talk about, but if we could please spin the block on this, because, you know, I feel like to bring it to this pivot or quit it moment, I feel like this is something that, you know, a lot of people kind of listen for or listen for these shared experiences. And I think a lot of people have these moments in life. And again, you know, we're talking to some dreamers. We're talking to some motherfucking doers, like people who are tapped in with us. Like, you know, we know y'all got potential. We know y'all really about something and you're building. And you're trying to figure out and you're trying to mastermind and you're trying to plan and you're trying to vision and you're trying to meditate. Like I know what kind of people we talking to. Mm-hmm. But I think, you know, that's kind of like that's like a broken mirror kind of moment, you know, like where that dream is a distraction.
Yeah, and I'll tell you this because I wanted to spin the block on this as well. One question, and I'll say the African proverb after this. It says, I ask myself, how often am I a fool? And the African proverb is, a fool is thirsty in the midst of water. A fool is blinded by what he wants when he has exactly what he needs in front of them. So if you would just step out of your life and just assume that I have everything I need in my life right now, but I'm blinded by what I'm chasing. That's what made that think like that dream, that you just think that's the thing and you're so obsessed with it. And because you're blessed with skills, your blessing becomes your burden. And you're a fool chasing this thing when you have everything you need in your sight. And it's just, that hits me hard. Because I've been a fool now. I've been a fool.
What?
I've been a fool in the midst of water. No, you need water, but you want juice. So you out here drinking up all the juice when
I feel like that's all of us.
Water.
And it ain't quenching no thirst.
No thirst.
And what you saying, Tunji, you have me about to stand up and flip over my desk. You want to know why? Because 10 something more, almost, I can't even get my words out. 10 something or more years ago, I had the biggest dream to be the biggest shoe designer, sneaker designer could ever imagine. I was going to be the biggest sneaker designer. It was going to be like, who is Nike? That was me. Like, you don't understand the obsession I had more than 10 years ago. Until I got my offer to go to FAMU. And then I got to see all this business talk. I got to talk with CEOs of Microsoft. I got to sit down face to face. I got to realize just how important real estate is. My mind shifted. My whole aura changed. For the sneakers, that dream was more of a look. It was more of what I was used to. It was more of what my environment around me was doing that became a habit. And then my activities coupled with that, I was a big sports player. So it made sense to be into shoes and to dream to be the biggest sneaker designer.
That's what I knew Zuri as, by the way.
Yeah. But then when
she was a sneakerhead.
But then when I got planted in another environment that I didn't even want to go to the college that I got accepted to. But when I got put in that environment, when I got planted there, just the way I bloomed, I just saw things that I never thought. And purpose was just behind it. That's the only way I can explain it. So you have an obsession versus purpose. And my purpose won. Because so many, with sneakers, I thought of myself. With where I was planted in my dreams now, I think of who I can benefit. I don't even think of myself with what I want to do now. I think of how individuals on the other side, outside of me, is going to benefit a century from now. And I think that's the difference. And if you can take the quote I mentioned earlier from Abbott of the goal being a distraction, and you think of it in that way, that might help just a tad to get you on the path of, is that goal a distraction or is it where you need to be? Outside of you, are you helping individuals? Will this be a generational thing for people that you haven't met? Or is it more of a self-inflictive how you want to look and feel?
And I want to challenge it a little bit. Just that one point you said it was purpose or obsession, and purpose won. But it's like Kamau said, we talked about the broken mirrors. The obsession led you to your purpose, right? The obsession kept you where you needed to be. The obsession got you to FAMU. Like I said, that obsession that this is what I'm going to do, biggest sneakerhead in the world, it makes you go left when you're supposed to go left and right when you're supposed to go right. Like, there's some times where you could have went to this party or this function or this thing. You're like, nah, I got to focus on this. Like, nah, I'm doing this tonight. Nah, I'm doing this. And it protected you. It got you to FAMU where you were supposed to be. And then you got another piece of your mirror. So I think it's exactly what you said, but I think it played out exactly how it's supposed to be. And I would argue that sneakerhead piece, it's all going to circle back.
Hey,
as we said before, no experience is wasted. It's all going to circle back. I bet you with it. And you acting like you still not a sneakerhead, right? I bet you that thing going to weave back together. It's already in your head like, ooh, this is exactly how it all connects.
But
is it? Do you know me, Tunji? You don't know me. Get out my head.
let me add to that though, because like I think mine is similar with the cannabis thing, is that when you have an identity that is attached to the dream, it's very hard to separate the two. You know, it's when you realize that this dream is not right now, it's not aligned, it's being a distraction for what you're actually called to do, it feels like you're giving up on yourself. Because who am I without this dream? I don't even know myself anymore. I don't even know why I wake up in the morning if it isn't to pursue the dream. You know, it gets so intertwined with your identity that it feels mandatory, and it feels like fraud if you go another direction. And that's something that I had to wrestle with heavy. It took months to really like give myself permission to go the other direction, you know. because you don't want to. You feel like I'm selling out on myself. You feel like this is what my community knows me as. I know Zuri's talked a bunch about, the power of rebranding, but when your community knows you as this, when you wear this label on your shoulder and that label isn't your purpose, or it isn't your purpose at that time, it's a heartbreak.
Yeah, no, and I'll tell you, and just to give context, we talk about broken mirror. For anybody that don't know, first episode, season 1, we shared this quote, Rumi. He said, the truth was a mirror in the hands of God. It fell and broke into pieces. Everybody grabbed a piece, looked at it, and thought they had the truth. And the thing is, our argument is, or at least my argument is, that we have these obsessions. We only get a piece of our mirror at the time. Zuri with being a sneakerhead, best sneaker designer in the world. Kamau with, okay, marijuana mogul, right? Me with, I need to be an assistant principal next. And you obsess over it. And then all of a sudden you look at the edge of your mirror, you realize it's jagged. There's no pathway to move forward. And then it's what you're saying, Kamau, that humility of looking down, of being like, having to risk that, but I thought you said you were going to do this, right? I thought this was the thing. Being able to find another piece of your mirror and realize that I couldn't see everything. Like I didn't have it all figured out yet. And then to proceed. So no, I feel you. But that's the hard part. Sometimes, like, I think what hit me most about what you said, Kamau, is it took me months to allow myself to move forward. Like, all I'm thinking is, yo, whoever needs to hear it, allow yourself to move forward. Allow yourself to find another piece of your mirror. That's the hardest part. People gonna talk regardless. They're gonna talk if you're on the way to the first dream or on the way to the second one. Allow yourself, give yourself the grace to find another piece of your mirror and move forward, to add to your identity.
Salute. Well, we got 2 last ones we can go ahead and transition into.
Yeah. So it's glows and grows? Am I tripping? Is it glows and grows? Yeah. Boy,
wait. Before you hop into this, though, explain the twist. This is Twisted Tea Grows and Glows. So explain.
Okay, so it's glows and grows as always. Glows is something that lights you up, right? A highlight, a dope moment, right? This is a glow. Like this got me smiling right now. This got that joy inside me. A grow is something I'm working on. It could be a failure, and it's not a favorite failure. It could be an L, it could be a bad moment, it could be a frustration. And then it's the soundtrack, right? Like the soundtrack to your glow, the soundtrack to your grow, the music that is getting you through, the music that you smile to while you glowing, or the music that's helping you grow. So my glow is Ron 365. I did 365 videos in a row. My morning self-talks for me.
Yeesh.
Right? 300, January 1st to December 31st. Talk to me nice. Oh, oh boy. So my grow is, I was thinking about just money and financial issues. And that's what I got to tighten up. And the main thing I was thinking about, like, how can I operate with so much joy and so much, like, heavy is the head that wears the crown. I'm like, why isn't my head as heavy? And it's because my sisters are carrying some of the weight. And it's coming at a price, right? Weight that I feel like I'm supposed to carry, specifically financially. And they're carrying me. They're carrying, like, my mom, loved ones. She's carrying herself, right? And it eats me up. So that's a grow for me. And the soundtrack to really my glow and my grow right now is Face the World by Nipsey Hussle. Face the World by Nipsey Hussle. Yeah, that's me,
motherfucker.
I'm telling you.
I appreciate the vulnerability too, man. That's hard to say on a mic.
Yeah, it's real.
All right, man. I'll definitely had to let the mic cool down a little bit. But to hop in for my grow and glow, I really have one for both this week. And it's really just not giving up on myself. And within that is forgiving myself for some things that I needed to, work through and forgive myself for. But it can also be easy to give up on yourself in the midst of you working through forgiving yourself for some things. So that's definitely my grow and glow. I growed through that by being able to and learning how to do that. And my glow is being excited for myself that I was able to move forward, but not give up. So looking in the mirror, just proud of myself, honestly. And my music and my soundtrack to my grow and glow is okay, y'all. I came up on this song, right? And I've listened to it probably 100 times back to back, like no fluff. And it's called No Weapon by Scooty Wop. And it's actually a gospel rap song. And when I tell you how he delivers the message of no weapon can come against you and no weapon can prosper, but the way he delivered the message in the cadence and the type of music that I like, like that R&B and rap kind of intertwined together, it's beautiful. And if you listen to the lyrics, it'll just put a smile on your face and it just makes your heart smile. If you feeling low, the 808s of the song is just like you just feel chipper. It's like a song that you need, almost like you like to say, Tunji, a breath of fresh air. It's just a great song. So that definitely goes with my grow and glow this week.
I don't have a poetic one. I think my glow is I'm just excited for the new year. I don't give a fuck what anybody thinks. I love the new year. I love the time of the year. I love the energy. I love the intentions. I love the purity, and it's just another feeling, and if you did the holidays right, if you did that time right where you actually you stood back and you took a break from things and you just kind of observed and glanced at the last year and explored the highs, explored the lows, and you just sat in that reflection piece. I feel like coming into the new year, it's an exciting time. And there's nobody who gets me more excited and turned up than Young motherfucking Thug. Young Thug has just been playing, I think for more reasons than one. I mean, King Slum, I think is somebody who you can't really explain. It's just a feeling. If you like Young Thug, it's a feeling. It's a feeling of the music. And what I've been rocking with, if I had a single one song out, it's Slime. I think it's Slime Shit. Yeah, Slime Shit off of Slime Season 2. And yeah, it's just one of those songs, and Thug is that artist that just gets you excited. He just gets you vibing. So that's the kind of energy I'm trying to keep with me. These first couple weeks of the new year, I'm vibing. I'm excited. I'm ready. So that's definitely the glow. The grow. Gosh, I mean, in line with my vision for the new year, I think this is a big one. And unpacking this is going to take a minute, but I think the grow is to become an entrepreneur and to become an entrepreneur by my standards. Like I'm already technically an entrepreneur. This is a business, so we're entrepreneurs. But I think that there's a certain standard and vision I have in mind for what that looks like. And I think it's really stepping into that, and it's scary. It's scary. But I also know it's destined. So, we here. It's a growing, and I'm gonna be plotting and planning and seeing what's next. So that's where I'm growing.
Hey, that may be it. Hey, that's one of them ones. That's one of them ones. And I appreciate the vulnerability too, Kamau. That's real. That's real.
Terrifying.
Man, so anybody
I mean, I'm waiting for y'all to sing the outro music. Y'all,
okay, I'm making sure. But yeah, I was just enjoying that breath of fresh air. That's really what it felt like. Like I'm excited to be back with y'all on here. It feels good, right? With all the work outside of it, you kind of forget this feeling. But the feeling at the end of an episode, we're like, man, I rock with them. Like we here, like this feels like home. So all that being said, hopefully it felt like home to you too. And until the next time you hear us, may every pivot you have made have a proceed, and know that you were loved.
Peace.